They called her the most beautiful woman in the world. Oh, a goddess of the silver screen. A face so perfect, even cameras seemed to slow down for her just to catch one more frame of that impossible beauty. But what the world didn't know was that behind those hypnotic eyes lived a mind that was racing faster than the century she was born into. While Hollywood saw her as a fantasy, she was quietly building the foundations of the very technology you're using right now, the wireless connection that powers everything from your phone to spacecraft. So before we dive into her extraordinary journey, hit subscribe and ring the bell for Pioneers in the Dark, where we uncover the forgotten visionaries who shaped the world you live in, at least, but were erased by the spotlight. Because tonight, you'll meet the woman who turned beauty into brilliance and whose invention reshaped the future. The year was 1933. Europe trembled under the shadow of a rising darkness. In Vienna, a young woman named Hedy Lamarr was performing on stage, her every movement commanding silence. She was only 18, but her presence was magnetic, the kind of beauty that left rooms breathless. Producers, directors, aristocrats, everyone wanted her attention. But Hedy was not like the others. She wasn't satisfied with applause or champagne. While other actresses memorized lines, she was sneaking into the back of theaters, asking technicians how the lights worked, how the sound systems functioned. She was obsessed with how things connected. That curiosity, though, would soon clash with the cruel reality of her time. At 19, she starred in Ecstasy, a film that drew wide attention for its bold and emotional storytelling. The Catholic Church condemned it, Germany banned it, and her family was thrown into turmoil. And that's when she met Fritz Mandel, one of Austria's richest men, an arms manufacturer with deep ties to the growing Nazi regime. He was older, powerful, and obsessive. He promised to protect her from scandal, and for a moment, she believed him. But her marriage to Mandel became her first prison. He controlled her every move, forbade her from acting, and forced her to attend lavish dinners filled with generals, politicians, and scientists designing weapons for war. And though she was trapped, she listened. As these men discussed torpedoes, radio signals, and control systems, she learned. She remembered. Every night, she stored away their secrets, connecting patterns in her mind. Hedy Lamarr, the trophy wife, was silently becoming Hedy Lamarr, the inventor. By 1937, the war was closing in, and so was Mandel's control. Hedy knew she had to escape, or she'd lose her soul forever. So one night, dressed as a maid, she drugged her husband's servant, stole her jewelry, and fled. Through the Alps, into Paris, then to London alone, but free. And fate, or perhaps genius, led her to the man who would change her life again. Louis B. Mayer, head of MGM Studios. He saw her beauty and smelled opportunity. "Hollywood will love you," he said. "You'll be the next big thing." He renamed her Hedy Lamarr. And soon, her face lit up billboards from New York to Los Angeles. Algiers, Samson, and Delilah. Ziegfeld girl, she was the dream of millions. But when the lights went out and the cameras stopped rolling, Hedy returned home to her true obsession. She filled her dressing room with blueprints, gears, and tools. She took apart radios, rewired switches, studied technical manuals. Her co-stars partied, she built machines. The world thought Hedy Lamarr was a fantasy. But she was about to become one of the most visionary minds of her generation. The year was 1940. Europe was burning. The U.S. hadn't yet entered the war, but the news from across the Atlantic was horrifying. German submarines were sinking ships faster than anyone could respond. The torpedoes used radio signals to guide them, but those same signals could be jammed, making them useless. Hedy had an idea. She remembered those dinners years ago, the scientists talking about frequency control and signal disruption. She began to sketch something no one had imagined before, a system that could make radio signals hop between frequencies, preventing enemy forces from locking on or jamming transmissions. In simple terms, she invented spread spectrum communication, the foundation of Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. But she wasn't alone. At that time, she had befriended George Antheil, an avant-garde composer known for synchronizing dozens of player pianos. Together, they dreamed up a system that used piano rolls to change radio frequencies in perfect coordination, a musical code for machines. In 1942, they filed a patent for their secret communication system. It was revolutionary, a technology decades ahead of its time. The U.S. Navy, however, dismissed it. "She's just an actress," they said. "What could she possibly know about engineering?" And just like that, her invention was shelved, forgotten, collecting dust in military archives. But Hedy didn't stop. She sold war bonds, raised millions for the Allied effort, and still spent nights drawing circuits and diagrams. Her beauty got her through doors, but it was her intellect that gave her purpose. As the war ended, Hedy continued to innovate. She tinkered with airplane wings, traffic lights, and even ideas for solar power. But Hollywood never understood her. They saw glamour. She saw geometry. They sewed her face. She was trying to sell the future. The tragedy was that her world wasn't ready for a woman who could be both beautiful and brilliant. As fame faded, so did recognition. By the 1960s, her films were nearly forgotten, and her inventions remained uncredited. She grew reclusive, misunderstood, a genius without applause. But her legacy was quietly building unseen, in the invisible waves that carried voices, music, and data across the air. Every time someone connected to Wi-Fi, Hedy's fingerprint was there. Now, take a moment. Imagine being told your only value was your beauty, while your mind could have reshaped civilization. Imagine holding the blueprint of the future, and watching the world laugh at it. That's the story of Hedy Lamarr. But it's also the story of every forgotten pioneer who is buried beneath their brilliance. And if that idea moves you, then you're exactly where you need to be. Because here, on Pioneers in the Dark, we don't just remember history, we restore it. The world was at war, and the lights of Los Angeles still glowed like fireflies in the dark. But inside a single mansion on Crescent Drive, one of the brightest minds in the country was not at a party, she was at her workbench. Hedy Lamarr's living room looked less like a movie star's home and more like a secret laboratory. Blueprints scattered across the marble floor. A soldering iron rested beside half-decimal-tailed radios. Sheets of musical notation covered the tables, not for a film score, but for frequency-hopping algorithms. The war was bleeding across continents, and she could hear the radio broadcasts whispering tragedy. Merchant ships torpedoed. Civilians dead at sea. Each report wasn't just news to her, it was a personal call to action. And so, the actress everyone adored was spending her nights designing weapons of communication. She wasn't thinking of fame anymore. She was thinking of saving lives. Hedy wasn't an engineer by title, but her mind refused boundaries. She had one burning question. How do you send a signal that no enemy can catch? And that's when she found her answer in music. She met George Antheil, a wild, eccentric composer who once synchronized 16-player pianos to perform a single piece. His music wasn't chaos, it was mathematics and melody. To Hedy, that was brilliance. Together, they built something no one had ever seen. Using rolls of punch tape like the ones used in automatic pianos, they proposed a system that could make torpedoes change frequencies 88 times per second, hopping between channels so fast that no radio interceptor could keep up. It was elegant. It was insane. It was genius. They called it the secret communication system. In August 1942, the U.S. Patent Office officially granted them Patent No. 2,292,387. One that would later be recognized as the foundation of modern wireless communication. But that recognition wouldn't come for another 60 years. Because when Hedy took her invention to the Navy, the response wasn't applause, it was dismissal. A man in uniform leaned back and said, "Miss Lamarr, perhaps your talents would be better used entertaining the troops." Those words cut deeper than she let anyone see. They didn't care about her design. They cared about her lipstick. They couldn't see the genius beyond the glamour. In their eyes, she wasn't an inventor, she was a distraction. And so her creation, the technology that could have saved thousands, was shelved, locked away, untested, unacknowledged. Hedy went home that night and didn't cry. She didn't throw anything. She simply sat in silence and stared at her blueprints, tracing the lines with her fingers. "They'll use it one day," she whispered, "even if they forget my name." Meanwhile, the world kept turning, and Hollywood demanded her smile again. In 1949, she starred in Samson and Delilah, one of the most expensive films ever made. Audiences flooded theaters to see her. Critics called her divine. But behind the makeup and diamonds was a woman slowly disappearing. Between takes, she would sketch new mechanical ideas on napkins. After filming, she would rush home to her workbench, tinkering with radio transmitters and designs for better airplanes. But no one cared. Producers rolled their eyes. Directors called her difficult. Fame had given her everything except the freedom to be herself. And yet, her invention lived on. Quietly, invisibly. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the U.S. military began experimenting with frequency-hopping communication systems, rediscovering Hedy's concept. Later, engineers adapted her principles into spread-spectrum technology, forming the basis of secure military communications. Satellites, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. But not one of them knew her name. As the 1950s dawned, Hedy Lamarr's stardom began to fade. The roles became fewer, the lights dimmer. Hollywood had moved on to newer faces, newer fantasies. And as the world forgot her face, it also forgot her mind. By the 1960s, she was nearly bankrupt. Her marriages, 6 in total, had collapsed under the weight of her restlessness and brilliance. In one interview, she said, "Men want to control women, but I just want to invent things." She drifted into isolation. Lawsuits, scandals, and betrayals followed her. The press, once obsessed with her beauty, now mocked her for aging. She'd walk the streets of Los Angeles, unseen, a ghost of Hollywood's golden age, hiding in plain sight. And yet, through all that silence, one thing remained: her unbreakable curiosity. Even in solitude, Hedy continued to build. She designed an improved traffic signal system, a tablet that dissolved in water to create instant soda years before it was possible, concepts for aircraft wings that could fold like birds. She saw the world differently in equations, mechanics, and possibility. But each time she tried to bring her ideas forward, she was met with the same words: "You're an actress. What do you know?" The cruel irony was that she had invented a technology the world was already using. But no one realized it came from her. In 1962, her patent, long expired, was finally implemented in U.S. military communications during the Cuban crisis. Her name wasn't on the documents. Her royalties? None. Her contribution? Accredited. Hedy Lamarr, the woman who could have changed history, was erased from it. But history has a strange way of remembering. In the late 1990s, decades after her invention was rediscovered, engineers and historians stumbled upon her original patent. They read the names Hedy Lamarr, Markey, and George Antheil. It was like unearthing a time capsule, a genius buried beneath decades of indifference. The tech world was stunned. How could a 1940s movie star have envisioned a technology so advanced it was still shaping the digital age? Magazines called her the mother of Wi-Fi. Science journals praised her foresight. In 1997, at 82 years old, she received the Electronic Frontier Foundation Award, her first real recognition. But Hedy didn't attend. She was too frail, living quietly in Florida. When told about the honor, she smiled faintly and said, "It's about time." The woman who once lit up movie screens now sat surrounded by silence, no spotlight. No audience, just the quiet hum of a world connected by the very technology she dreamed of. And somewhere, through the invisible waves of Wi-Fi and satellite communication, her idea, her gift, still lived. Every phone call, every text, every streamed movie, all whispered her name, even if the world didn't realize it. Her story is not just about invention. It's about vision that transcends validation. It's about daring to imagine a world that cannot yet see your worth. And that right there is what Pioneers in the Dark stands for. The ones who saw the light before the world believed it existed. It's the late 1970s, and the world has changed. The Cold War hums like a steady pulse. Satellites orbit silently above, their signals skipping across the globe, encrypted, secure, invisible. Somewhere in those encrypted frequencies, in that hidden digital heartbeat of the modern world, beats the ghost of Hedy Lamarr's idea. But Hedy herself. She lives alone, behind drawn curtains in a modest Florida apartment. No red carpets, no flashbulbs, no applause. The woman once called the most beautiful in the world now spends her days sketching inventions no one will ever build. Her voice, once soft and elegant, now carries the brittle edge of someone who's seen the world's kindness and cruelty both. When a reporter once asked if she missed Hollywood, she simply said, "Not at all. They didn't miss me." Each morning she'd make tea, sit by her window, and read books on science. The world outside raced toward the digital era: cell phones, satellites, computers, all powered, in part, by her forgotten brilliance. But Hedy didn't own a computer. She didn't even own a television. She had grown tired of screens that never looked back. Sometimes she would receive letters from admirers, old fans who still remembered Samson and Delilah, or young engineers who had stumbled across her patent. She'd read each one slowly, her eyes softening, and whisper, "At least someone remembers." Then she'd fold the letters carefully and tuck them into a small wooden box marked Inventions. But in 1997, something extraordinary happened. A man named Richard Rhodes, a Pulitzer-winning author, and several engineers from the Electronic Frontier Foundation decided to honor her. They called to tell her she had been awarded the Pioneer Award for her contribution to wireless communication technology. At first, she thought it was a prank. After all, she'd spent decades being laughed out of meetings. But when they assured her it was real, she laughed softly, the kind of laugh that comes from disbelief and quiet vindication. She didn't attend the ceremony, she rarely left home anymore, but when the award arrived in the mail, she held it for a long time. For the first time in over half a century, the world had finally said her name for what truly mattered. And yet, the recognition came too late to change her life. Hedy Lamarr passed away in January 2000 at the age of 85. No grand farewell. No flashbulbs. Just a quiet end to a storm of a life. Her ashes were scattered in the Vienna woods, the same country she fled long ago, chasing freedom. But in that silence, something began to stir. Because her story, once buried, began to rise. Tech journalists rediscovered her patent. Documentaries unearthed her letters and journals. Scientists began calling her the mother of modern communication. And just like that, the woman the world had reduced to beauty became a symbol of something far greater, the intelligence that history almost erased. Think about that for a second. The Wi-Fi you're reusing right now, the Bluetooth in your headphones, the GPS guiding planes above, they all trace back to an idea. Born in a Hollywood living room, crafted by a woman no one believed in. She didn't just predict the future, she built it. And she did it without needing validation, fame, or credit. She did it because it was right. That's what makes her story so haunting. She didn't fight for applause. She fought to make something that would outlast her, and it did. Every signal you send, every message that crosses invisible airwaves, that's her voice whispering through time. Hedy Lamarr's life is a mirror for all forgotten visionaries, those who dare to imagine something too big for their time. Those who burn so brightly that the world has to look away before it blinds them. And yet, even in that darkness, they light the way for everyone else. That's what Pioneers in the Dark is all about. It's about the dreamers who built our present in the shadows of their past. The thinkers who gave everything and got nothing. And yet, the world they imagined became our world. So if this story moved you, if you felt that mix of wonder and heartbreak that only truth can bring, then you already understand what we were trying to do here. We tell the stories that history forgot. We give names back to the people who built the future you live in. So, before you scroll away, take a second, hit subscribe, and tap the bell icon. Because next time, we're diving even deeper into another forgotten legend whose discovery changed everything, but whose name the world erased. And remember, every notification you get from this channel is a little signal, a little spark, powered by the very woman who made it possible. Because some pioneers shine in the spotlight and others, shine in the dark.